Land use and planning. Sorry. Good morning. Calling this meeting in order, a regular scheduled land use and planning committee meeting. So the affidavit for posting. Yes, the affidavit posting in the county clerk, 21st day of October 2021. Notice is sent to West Bend Daily News, Express News, WBDD, WMBZ Radio, WTKM Radio, My Community Now, Hartford Times Press, and Kewaskum Statesman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Present, actually, Brian co-chair is leading today as Supervisor Carol Mary is excused. All other board members and committee members are present, including Ms. Schultes joining us via Zoom. I'd like all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. I think we'll quick go through the consent agenda. We do it at 7:30. Thank you. We're going to move the order of our meetings to the public hearing. So I would ask that the county clerk read the notice of the public hearing. Thank you.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held at a meeting of the Washington County Land Use and Planning Committee in room 1019 of the Washington County Government Center, 432 East Washington Street, West Bend, Wisconsin, on Thursday, October 28th, 2021 at 7:30 a.m. There will be heard and considered the petition of John and Cindy Heistor for a conditional use permit for associated filling, grading, and excavating of greater than 15,000 square feet within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark of a stream for raising existing building and construction of new residence, driveway, and associated landscaping in a shoreline, wetland, and floodplain zoning district. Location part of GL2 of Section 3, Town of Polk, tax key T9 005200B, dated this 11th day of October 2021.
Thank you. So declare this public hearing open, and we'll take comments from members. If you have any comments, please rise to the podium and state your name and proceed with your comments.
Good morning. Shane Pinkuski from Highland Builders. So I'm owner's representative for the owners of this property. So they had contacted us just developing a site plan for the raising of the existing cottage and then the building of the house on this property. This property has a little bit of unique challenges in that there's a 55-foot drop from Sleeping Dragon Road to the lake. So with that, we have to raise the driveway to get down to the house to make it an acceptable pitch to the road. And that's what caused us to be over the limit for the county and then meeting this hearing. So we worked with the county and Quam Engineering to develop a stormwater grading plan. So that has been submitted and reviewed by the county. This particular lot had an existing small 12-inch culvert and then a riprap swale going through the lot. And in our proposal, we've handled it with additional riprap, some stone ditch checks, and a larger culvert, and then a larger swale that was designed or given proposed design by the county. So we worked with the county to bring about basically all their requirements for the stormwater plan in the Planning and Parks Department.
Thank you. Any other public would like to speak at the hearing regarding this conditional use? Hearing none, closing this public hearing. And ask for a motion, a second to close that hearing. Mr. Boltman? Second? Supervisor Krebs, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Motion carries. The public hearing has been closed. So, Mr. Sebo, if you could provide the committee with an overview of the request.
I think the owner's representative did a great job of an overview. Yes, staff, both Dave Linder and Paul Backus worked on reviewing the stormwater, basically the soil that cuts through the property to make sure it's stable into the long term and that the design is proper with the culverts and everything to be able to handle the storms. There is a 30-acre watershed above this site that does cut through the property and will be underneath the driveway. So we want to make sure the work and the additional filling wasn't going to cause any problems. So the only other comment I would have is just look at the recommendations, because there are 2 specific recommendations, and the plan is to start construction soon. So we're going to be doing an overwinter kind of construction thing. So that's why the additional notes in the recommended motion are in there.
Okay, board members, any questions? Mr. Krebs.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. 2 questions. The rock lines riprap swale, is that in an easement, or is there a concern for that to protect that in the future?
No, it's just part of the natural landscape. I mean, they can't stop upland waters coming through. Yeah, we've never done an easement on an individual lot,
Okay,
for any type of purpose. So
this is like a natural drainage point. It's not already existing constructed.
right, yes,
Swale.
it's a natural swale and valley that cuts through.
Okay. Second question is the aerial view of it shows it's pretty wooded. Is most of that being removed for the grading of the driveway?
So I'm not sure if you're looking at the right spot, but basically there's a private drive that kind of cuts through the parcel,
Oh,
and everything to the right of that, where kind of the existing driveway is kind of like new gravel must have been put in or something, even in a 2020 photo.
Okay,
So
I didn't realize.
that's the building area.
Okay, I didn't realize. I thought they were coming off the main road to the west further.
It's kind of tough to see the existing driveway that comes down and services like the 3 lots that are down there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for committee members? Okay, hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve the conditional use permit for John and Cindy Heisendorf for the filling and grading, excavating greater than 1,500 square feet within the 300 feet of navigable waterway. Also, keeping in mind staff recommendations, 2 items, 1 and 2 regarding erosion control.
Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Krebs, a second.
Yes, second.
Ms. Schulte, second. Thank you. So all in favor of approving the conditional use permit as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll move back to our agenda items, consent items for A through E. A motion to accept. Mr. Krebs, first, second, please. Supervisor Boltman, any questions or pullouts for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving consent items for A through E? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to additional action items. 5B is a United States wildlife damage and abatement budget. And we'll actually have a few that are similar, but if we can hear first about the, I believe it's for resources. Yes, thank you. My apologies, I forgot your name.
That's right. I'm Mike Bergen with USDA Wildlife Services.
Thanks, Mike.
The first item, I guess, is the 2022 budget. First two pages are the same. One is how the USDA needs it broken down, basically the federal side. And the second page is how the DNR needs it broken down. I tend to look at the DNR side. It's a little bit easier to read and go through. So I guess the total budget for 2022 that we're looking to approve is $32,142.64. But the number that we're actually approving today is $28,382.42. And the reason that it's less is because the USDA funds $3,760.22. So that's already approved and is taken care of. In the center, there's a $1,250, and that goes to the county for administration costs. There's also a line on there that says venison processing for $2,000, and that's included in there as well for deer donation. So, does anybody have any questions on anything?
Actually, question, I think for staff, this was a line item in our budget as well.
This is pass-through money from the DNR, so it doesn't come out of the county at all.
Okay, but from a pass-through?
Yeah, it's in the budget. We always just do like a $25,000 kind of placeholder of income and expenses. And then their budget usually shows up,
You're right.
while we're in the process or almost as the county almost approves the budget. So it is in there. It's just, these are just the refining of the exact numbers of what the budget is.
Got it. Okay, any further questions by board members? Hearing none, then I would need a motion to approve and ask for the dollar amount to be an ask of $28,382.42.
So moved.
Right, thank you, Ms. Schultes. Second, Supervisor Boltman. Excuse me, all in favor of the motion to approve the animal and plant health inspection abatement program budget for 2022 with the amount of $28,382.42. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for showing up this morning.
Thank you. There's a couple other
Yes.
items on the agenda there.
Right. We have the second one. So action item 5C. This is regarding similar United States Department of Agriculture. This is crop damage price, wildlife damage and abatement crop prices for 2021.
So the page that you're looking at there is basically an abbreviated version of all the crop prices we have. These are the only prices that are needed for Washington County, so that's what's presented. All the prices you see here are year-long averages. They're not the current price, and you guys are free to move those up or down however you see fit. But those are the averages from last year at this point to this point.
Probably could adjust the wheat price to $6.50, I would say at least.
Okay.
It currently is around $7, but I don't know if it'll maintain that. And soybeans are about $12.50. I don't know. It could go up a little bit, but
Okay.
I think you're okay there. Other than that, I think everything looks right in line.
So Mr. Strupp, you're recommending that the wheat price be changed from $6.07 to $6.50 a bushel?
Yes, at least.
Okay. So if a motion is made, if that could be captured. All right, and I'm sorry? With the correction. Okay, got it. Well, that, I guess that's what I meant. I want to make sure that we captured that change based upon discussion. Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding the motion to approve the 2021 wildlife damage and abatement crop prices?
Opening for the Sandhill Cranes. Are we getting close to that? Do you know?
I'm not sure where that's at as far as the season actually being opened. If the season does open, the cranes would be a potential eligible species and farmers could get compensated for damage by cranes. So,
Oh, wow. And then
Yeah,
they're
that would be
gonna, you don't know, but they'll issue tags or how are they gonna?
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm guessing they're gonna issue tags for, hunters to go out and harvest some cranes when,
Right.
if or when that season does get pushed through.
Right.
But I'm not sure where that's at so far.
Okay,
Typically, the Crane Foundation pushes back quite a bit on
yeah.
the season. And that's why it's not gone through yet in Wisconsin, but we'll
Right.
see how it plays out.
And the farmers that do collect for the deer damage, they get tags, they be used during the year, correct?
Yeah, so there's two different ways a farmer can enroll. One avenue is what we call an Act 82, and that's just simply agricultural damage tags. They don't receive any compensation,
Right.
but they don't have to go out public hunting either. The other way is what we would call a full enrollment, and if they enroll fully in the program, they do still get tags, or they're eligible for tags if they receive or are likely to exceed $1,000 in damage.
Right.
If they get those tags and are eligible for compensation, they do have to go out public hunting.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Okay, I'll need a motion then to approve those prices as discussed, which includes a change for wheat. Mr. Bolton? Second by Supervisor Krebs. So motion is to approve the 2021 crop prices with the change in wheat. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. If we could pause for a second while I complete a form. Thank you. Next agenda item. 5D. This is a deer donation agreement that Washington County is looking to enter with the WDACP Vision Donation Program in 2021.
Nope, and this is kind of tied in with the budget with that line item with the $2,000. But it's basically just an agreement that Washington County wants to participate in the deer donation program with the DNR. And that's the same thing, that the DNR actually pays that money to process those deer. So these are deer that are harvested by hunters that get donated to help go to food pantries. It's basically the money to pay for the processing.
Any question by board members? So we're just curious, because you said the county will pay, that's reimbursed, I think it was, right?
Yeah, it's the DNR pays for it, so it's kind of pass through money too, but it's just a line item that, it could be up to $2,000 to process deer that are donated by hunters.
How does that control? A hunter comes in, do they have to say they're from Washington County or processed under Washington County or?
No, there's just certain processors in Washington County that are involved in the program, and the processors make that decision whether they want to be involved or not. And then if they are, then they're eligible to take deer in from hunters and process those deer. So the DNR pays for that money through $100 pays for those processing.
And that meetup is donated then to a food pantry or?
Right.
Okay.
What, I'm curious, what has the participation been like over the previous years?
I'm not sure exactly how many deer have been donated in Washington County. The number of processors actually have gone down, and that's gone down in a number of counties around the southern half of the state that we take care of. Why that is, I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of hoops that they need to jump through, whether it's CWD testing or, just the paperwork involved with the venison donation program. But there's been reduction in the number of processors that want to be involved with it. So trying to hold on to the ones we have, I guess.
Yeah. So is there a paperwork that the processors have to complete as well?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And the CWD, like you said, they probably together are making it more difficult.
Right, yep, for sure. Because then they have to potentially save the heads for lymph node removal for testing for CWD. And it creates an additional headache for them. I know the prices haven't increased in recent years either. So that doesn't make it any more desirable for them to continue.
Thank you.
Any other discussions or questions?
I was just gonna add that the Gearing Meats is the only processor that's participated in the program in Washington County in the last couple of years. Before that, Kiosk and Frozen Foods, and then we're actually participating with Layers up in Campbellsport. There's a lot of my residents were bringing their deer up there to be processed, but if memory serves me right, there was probably about a dozen deer, I think, last year that were donated to the program. I think the cost of the check that we ended up paying the processor and then got reimbursed for was like $700 some.
Actually, to your point, Mr. Sebo, if residents don't know about it, how do we get that word out?
I know I get information on it when I buy my license that you can donate your deer, ask your processor. So it's just a matter of, knowing where the processor is, I guess.
Right, that was maybe my comment. If you don't know, I mean, I hunt too, and I didn't know Gearing or they were the one, so.
Did you ever consider giving your deer up?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Also, I need a motion to approve then the participation in the, Wisconsin Deer Donation 2021 program.
So moved.
Is Schulte's first, the second? Supervisor Boltman, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is a resolution regarding a grant application for aquatic invasive species. And clean waters grant from the Wisconsin DNR. Mr. Sebo.
Yes, my apologies on the last minute ad. To add the Clean Boats, Clean Waters, originally when we were looking at putting in the Clean Boats, Clean Waters grant, and that is used to cover the cost of the summer intern for just doing the watercraft inspections. So we also have 3 other lakes in the county that have been participating in that grant. And 2 of the lakes that we've been actually working with IGAs and actually hiring the summer interns to do their Clean Boats, Clean Waters. That was Park Lake, Pike Lake, and Freeze Lake kind of does their own, but they apply for the grant as well. When I was looking at the original grant information and all the information about Clean Boats, Clean Waters, I didn't realize a resolution was needed. So I worked with the county attorney in the clerk's office to get the changes just to add the Clean Boats, Clean Waters into this resolution. So, but that's what it is. I'm estimating because we only need to do 200 hours of watercraft inspections by the intern. The intern puts about 440 hours in every year, so it's only going to cover probably about a third of what the cost of that intern is, but it's always all that those positions and the work has been included in the budget. So it's already all in there and covered as cost. And this is just to help offset some of the county expenses.
And sorry, just to clarify, this is not a new program. The DNR has decided they want new resolutions on all of our existing grants programs. You saw one last month with the snowmobile and ATV program we participate in. Correct, Paul? This is not new. They've
Yeah,
been
this is,
doing
yeah, it's not new. It's the state restructured their aquatic invasive species program. It used to be under one umbrella, and we would get lake donations, and the lake donations would actually pay for the cost of the intern. Well, we're still getting lake donations. They just divided the grants, and the grants need resolutions for each one of their little pots of money that they have for the program. So,
Any question by members? Okay. I did want to, a quick question in the resolution. I noticed that there was a Lake Monitoring and Protection Network that was stricken, but included elsewhere. Does that need to be cleaned up in the resolution?
So the entire grant system that the DNR has is actually a surface water grant. And I just struck the Lake Monitoring and Protection Network in the title of the grant application, but just say it's for aquatic invasive species pollution control. And then the two grants are listed underneath.
Got it. So it's an overall heading, but the specifics, including the clean boats and clean water, is appropriate because they're two separate.
Right.
The
yes.
monitoring, lake monitoring,
Yep.
right? Thank
Two
you.
separate pots of money and two separate grants that the DNR has.
Okay. So if no other questions, I would need a motion to approve the resolution for the grant application aquatic invasive species and clean boat and clean waters grant. All right. Mr. Krebs first, a second. Sorry, Supervisor Schultes, thank you. So all in favor of that grant application resolution 2021? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a resolution considering a transfer from a general fund to the Snowmobile Club Association. If you'd allow me, before I put a vote, I would ask us to consider a vote to postpone until our next regularly scheduled committee meeting, which I believe is November 18th at 7:30 a.m. The reason why I'm recommending suggesting that is while the amount I believe is solid, what we don't know yet is how and when the DNR is processing those for other counties and the timing of that. So to some degree, we don't know what actually will be reimbursed by those requests from other counties. So I guess from my opinion is if they're coming in at some percentage of those grant requests, our action should mirror that. So if they are coming in at 100%, well, then maybe the request to do a transfer is at 100% of the applicant's request. But if they're coming in at 75 or 80 or 50, well, then we should mirror that. At least that's what I was thinking. So right now, we don't have information, at least to my understanding, and staff, correct me if I'm wrong, that the DNR hasn't released those grants yet. So we don't know what they're coming in at. Mr. Krebs.
That's correct. They're anticipating award letters December 1st-ish. Wait, is that right, Logan? December 1st?
Yes, that's correct. That was gonna say.
So as a note, the November 18th meeting, we may still not have that information. Just,
I would also like to add to, I have spoken to Waukesha and Sheboygan County. And I'm not 100% sure why they're different. But Waukesha County has not received any notification on their award amount yet. Sheboygan County, they actually have already received 50% of their request for supplemental funding. I don't know why they were different than Waukesha, so I think there is some discrepancies in that, but stated the DNR does have till December 1st to review those entries
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms.
A
Schulte.
question, a question to build on to Logan. So if another county has gotten 50%, I think he said Sheboygan County, is there any way, and I understand your thoughts, is there any way to stagger and maybe us give 50% now, and then when we find out in December, return, give more at that time and balance it out?
I mean, I'll let you guys take that around. We can do anything that the committee.
I couldn't hear her, but
How do? I was just going to say in response to Ms. Schulteis, we can do whatever the county wants. There procedurally, that's a little tougher just because of this needing approval by the county board.
Mr. Krebs.
Thank you. My apologies too, because I missed last month's meeting when this was first discussed and debated. But I have also been in contact with some of the snowmobile clubs, and I fear about with postponing it and then needing the county board approval still, this is kicking a large amount of their revenues down the road into their operating season when they might be needing this money sooner. So I think I would, what's the proposed, or what are we thinking for looking or averaging in the surrounding counties? If one's at a 50% award rate and one's at 100% award rate, are we going to just average our surrounding counties and use that as what we would reimburse them for? Because otherwise, could we not also look at historically what the Washington County trails have received over the last 5 to 10 year rolling average from the DNR and use that amount?
This, the first point here is Sheboygan County. I think they are anticipating receiving 100% of the amount that they applied for in supplemental funding. DNR was just able to give them 50% of that amount up front. But I believe they're still reviewing their expenses in the audit process. And then as far as historical data goes, I believe it has been 10 years, and Jerry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, since as a county, we were able even to apply for supplemental funding. And in my research through some of our records, I wasn't even able to find when we last got it, what that amount was for. I'm sure that amount would have changed because we've added trail miles over the years as well. So
do we know why Sheboygan was able to get 50%? Do we understand the DNR and how they operate?
I do not fully understand why that is. And like I said, Waukesha County has not received any of their
Anything.
funding. So I think, Jerry, do you know why there may be variances?
Could you come up to Mike?
First thing is the prorate expense is set by the governor's council, the governor's snowmobile council. The prorate this year was 0. The clubs will receive 100% of what they applied for. Some clubs or some counties that get their paperwork in very early can apply for the 50% upfront. I thought that Washington County, like for the regular funding, also applies for the 50% upfront, and that would apply also to the supplemental. So if they've done that 50% application, that's probably why they're getting the 50% upfront for the supplemental grooming also.
Okay, thank you. With that, I would, instead of postponing it, I would propose, I'm just spitballing this, so this is not my motion or amendment yet, but doing like a 50% payment now to the clubs and reconciling once the surrounding counties have received their regular payments and any supplemental payments, that at the end, they do get their 100%. And see what, if any additional supplemental funding that the surrounding counties get, that we could determine what was likely that our clubs would have received. I would just be looking for a way to start getting some of this money rolling sooner.
No, I don't believe we have motion on the floor. I did not make I asked if we would consider.
I didn't make one either yet.
Make a motion for a general fund transfer up to, say, I'm just spitballing this, but up to $55,000 with 50% payment upon approval of the county board and 50%, and reconciliation and reapproval by either you could designate that authority to our staff or back to the committee. So you would get the full authorization for the total amount from the county board now, but you would basically make it contingent on that type of an operation.
That's exactly what I was thinking or would prefer. The only other thing that I would like to add, and it's another discussion point, but also I would like to see in this resolution some language that this gets forwarded on to our state legislators, and some type of wording asking for their involvement in trying to still rectify this with the DNR's office. The DNR sets the rules for their grant. I think they need a little pressure from the legislators as to make this right. Otherwise, the DNR is just getting a free 55,000 from Washington County at the end of the day.
I think just from a procedural standpoint, for further discussion, we probably should have a motion. So, Mr. Krebs, if you have something in mind, if you'd like to.
Okay, I would propose a amendment to the resolution on the floor at this time. I'll make a first to bring the resolution to the floor.
Right. Right, so there's a motion by Supervisor Krebs and second by Boltman to bring the resolution to transfer from the general fund to the Washington County Snowmobile Club Association. So all in.
We have.
So just one comment. I know Mr. Krebs is going to come up with a motion here in a second. I would just ask respectfully that we take the intent of his motion and then we take it back and we have an opportunity to just check with council and potentially kind of make sure the language is correct for the resolution coming to the county board in December. So that's kind of what I will do or we will do.
Make it gooder.
Well, I don't know what you're going to come up with. Maybe it's going to be spot on. But we'll take the notes of what you're intending here.
I would appreciate Emily friendly editing. Okay, I would propose an amendment to the resolution on the floor. On line 23, change the amount to 55,000. And then after the comma, correct. Okay, yeah. Line 23, supervisors that an amount not to exceed 55,000, comma, 50% of it shall be payable. 50% shall be transferred from the general fund to the Washington County Snowmobiles Association immediately. The remaining funds shall be reconciled after after the DNR releases their grant funding to other surrounding counties.
It's specific to the point. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Supervisor Schulte. So there's a motion to amend the resolution line 23 to insert and change the 53,000 to not to exceed 55,000 with additional 50% to be transferred to general fund from the general fund, and then the balance to be reconciled based upon the DNR grant issuances. Is that, so I'm summarizing, is that clear for committee members?
Yes.
So-
And just to speak to that, I'm proposing that just helping to keep this moving down the road to get through the county board, because if there's going to be an objection to whether it's 50% or the full amount, I'd rather get that discussion out of the way sooner with the board at large. So.
You know, for any other discussion before we go to a vote?
I would just throw on asking this committee, and if I know the county board's chair is here too, he's not on the committee, but you know, the discussion around this concept of drafting a letter from the committee or from the county board, or making, you know, if that's something that is actually a desire of the whole group, or if that's just Mr. Krebs.
Well, if I could opine on that. I understand there's a procedural mess, right? But like anything, typically there's escalation processes, and my understanding that some of that had occurred, but was met with resistance. And that just could be, look, this is a grant process, and if you don't follow, you don't qualify, or you can't submit. I kind of understand that. But I have struggled a little bit with this, and, you know, inquired whether it's potentially under, you know, the county's, you know, insurance, and it sounds like it doesn't meet that threshold. So if we're trying to make whole and continue partnership with the Snowmobile Club, you know, how do we resolve it to an amicable resolution? And where that should come from, you know. So I do have some reservations about coming from the general fund. And I think I can get over that, but I don't know what the alternative is, and that I guess could be another segregated fund, and I don't know if that's the right answer either. Sure. Yes, sorry,
Would it be,
Mr. Creeful.
yeah, for question for JB, with the restructure of land and planning, we now have a person dedicated to DNR issues. Would that be appropriate for that individual to contact DNR, and maybe that's the way we address some of these issues with how this funding is applied for, how the grants are given out, and whether or not timelines are tight.
I mean, so two points there. Certainly we have the capacity to, you know, reach out or draft letters for the elected officials' consideration. We had, and I explained this to Mr. Gallitz previously, we had talked about, and I think Don, maybe you were even part of these conversations, about how much political capital to utilize on this program, knowing our situation and our current relationship with the DNR. And that if this was a topic that we wanted to basically really, you know, hang our hats on about. That said, you know, so certainly I think there's contacting the DNR, but there's also what message are we sending when we do that, right? So if the action is already occurred by the county board and it's more of a, this is what happened to our taxpayers as a result of, you know, frigid bureaucratic rules and the inability to be flexible in situations and on, you know, working with all of the clubs consistently. And we want to make you aware of kind of what happened in 2021 to Washington County and Washington County snowmobile clubs. And recognize that to a certain degree that there is fault on Washington County as well. So this isn't 100%, you know, well, the DNR's complete fault, right? We have to, I think, recognize that it wasn't an ideal scenario and then it was how it was met. Or there's, you know, really advocating. And I think that was kind of the conversation we really had about not wanting to pursue that avenue from a political capital standpoint to, you know, call our legislators and advocate that they contact the secretary's office and kind of go down. So I think those are different in my mind in terms of reaching out to the DNR. And I think that doing the first is something that is, you know, relatively harmless in terms of our political position, but still puts it out there for, you know, so I guess, I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I guess what I'm looking at is, let's get dialogue going, you know, and so that, you know, if there are issues or, you know, I mean, this is the first time we're eligible for this grant in over 10 years, right?
Right. And so
So-
we did that at the staff level,
Yeah.
right? Our staff and their staff, and that
Yeah.
was where this started.
Mhm.
And to the point of, we did not escalate this to legislators. I
Mhm.
think we believe, or I believe that when we escalate things to legislators, that's the role of an elected official. And so in the case of the county, there are two groups of elected officials. There's the county executive that I work for, who indicated to me that he did not want to spend his, you know, time advocating legislators on this issue. And there's the county board, land use and planning committee members or county board collectively. And I think that it wasn't we don't want to, it was, you know, what does that sound like? Can we talk to them without, you know,
Yeah, we don't
not
want-
sure that that's the issue we wanted them.
Yeah, we don't want the DNR to DNR's got a lot of authority, a lot of power, obviously. But all I'm looking for is, if you created dialogue already around this issue, you know, let them know that, all right, we made the association whole. But let's work together, kind of team kumbaya, kind of, we're all working for the same people. Let's not be, maybe not so rigid, kind of.
Right. And so their staff did notify us.
Mhm.
Logan, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Their staff was, you know, did reach out. The snowmobile clubs did contact them. And we work with DNR staff on a variety of topics, a variety of grants, a variety of things that, you know, there's a certain level of like, okay, you know, you know, now you're going to tell my boss that I held the line on the application deadline. I mean, so that's kind of where our conversation went.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think this is, I guess I should back up. Obviously, I don't see the relationship that the county and the county staff has with the DNR and deals with them on a regular basis. So maybe I don't value that relationship as much, but at the same time, and I'm also not saying this is such a major thing that this is a hill worth dying on, creating a battle over. But I think the squeaky wheel does get the grease. And if no one knows about it other than the direct parties involved, if on the DNR side, if, you know, two bosses up don't know about it, and if no one above the county board knows about it, if none of our legislators know about it at the state level, how will it get fixed? So I think it does need to be known more about, so at least if there is any tolerance or adjustment at in the DNR, that they know about it, and maybe they could make some sort of a partial exception or work with us somewhat on it. Especially showing that Washington County is proposing on stepping up to the plate here and making the clubs whole. So at the end of the day, Washington County is 100% the loser here at this point. I think it should be well more known that the DNR is going to be as rigid as they are then for the general public, because at the end of the day, yes, the DNR is big and strong and powerful, but at the end of the day, the DNR does work for and answers to the constituents of Wisconsin. So they should know about this. I'm sure we're not the only county that has ever missed a grant application in the past. Hopefully this is the last one we miss. So that's why I think, even if we could get 50% of the funding back and we're making up the balance of it, would feel more of a first time penalty for us would be more appropriate. So I would, whether it's on myself individually or as the county board as a whole or the land use committee, I think we still need to push forward to at least let our legislators know of and be aware of this problem. So if this happens again elsewhere, they can see a pattern with their DNR and they can start to make adjustments then. Otherwise, the DNR, if they don't get any pushback, they'll just take more power. That's what all government does. So they do need to be challenged somewhat. I understand I don't want to rock the boat of the day-to-day operations, but their bosses need to know. So.
If I could just maybe add a little bit to that sentiment is, this is funds that are segregated, they're collected by fees from snowmobile trail users, correct? And so it's intended to go back to them, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we could get in a whole dialogue about why are we even sending money to DNR in the first place? Why didn't the clubs just keep it? And that's a whole nother discussion, but we're not going to solve that today. So if the intent was for them to use it, to Mr. Supervisor Krebs' point is, it's not like you're taking from something else, right? They were qualified, entitled for it. If I'm not mistaken, you guys submitted the expenses already for audit and review. So I would agree that there should be a way to do that, but if we have to decide as a county, if that's the approach we want to take and who's going to, take that torch, if you will. So in the meantime, I think I would agree with the, resolution to submit for the board to consider, paying for it now. And if ultimately we can get quote unquote reimbursed back from the DNR as would have been occurred with a grant, well, then we put that back into the fund. So there's just a couple thoughts. Any other comments before we go for a vote? Yes. Oh, I thought we had a second. I'm sorry. So Mr. Krebs made the motion to amend that line 23 as was called out. I think it was 23.
Can I read it back? So the motion we have to amend by an amount not to exceed $53,000 with 50% transferred from the general fund to the Washington County Snowmobile Club Association upon passage by the county board, with remaining funds transferred after release of DNR grant issuance data. Is that accurate?
No, but close. I have up to 55,000 and then a note about reconcile the final amount. Mary. And I'd like to touch base with Brad just to make sure we're saying that correctly.
Well, we do need a motion for the minutes though, so.
55,000 and change the word to reconciling.
Yeah, the reason I bumped it up more is because that would be for any additional funding that other counties like type or surrounding counties receive, where they might have actually gone more high, above and beyond what the 100% reimbursement would have been. And then the reconcile would be more related to, because at this point, the DNR's maybe this is not the right language, but is refusing to process our application. So we don't know what would have been the actual amount. So that's why we have to compare to other counties geographically or size to try to do our own magic of figuring out what if any additional funding we would have been eligible for. So
So with remaining funds reconciled after release of DNR data issuance of DNR data.
I need a second on that. To amend the, Mr. Schultes, Supervisor Schultes, sorry, thank you. Any further discussion on the resolution with the change to line 23 that was, I'm sorry? Yeah, sorry, vote on the amendment and then we'll get back to the actual resolution. So the amendment, line 23, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. So the amendment carries and will be changed accordingly. So back to the original resolution then to transfer fund from the general fund to the Washington County Snowmobile Club Association that would go to the board for approval. As amended. Yes, thank you. As amended. Any further discussion?
one last parting point, the discussion we had about the escalation or talking with our state legislators about this. I'm not pushing that topic at this point, but I'm floating out there that it is a conversation that should be had at some point. And I just want this committee to be aware of that, because I think once if this resolution gets to the full county board, I would fully expect there's several other members at the county board that are going to be asking the same question that I'm raising. So we'll have this conversation next month type of a deal. So.
Yeah, I would agree. And so I'd be happy to take this back with Chair Carol Mary for further discussion with staff. Any other questions on the amended motion to transfer from the general fund Washington County Snowmobile Club Association? If not, I would need a motion. Oh, sorry, we did have the motion and we had the amendment. Sorry, so all in favor of the amended motion as shared? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Nay or none? So motion carries. All right. We have one additional agenda item, and that is 5G regarding this would also be a resolution for an additional grant application to the Wisconsin DNR County Conservation for AIDS Grant Program that would go to the county board.
Happy to entertain any questions the committee has about this resolution.
It's basically to receive some additional funding for some buckthorn and a burn at two of the county parks. We need a motion.
So moved.
I'm just waiting, watching you, Brian.
All right. First by
Watching his eyes.
yeah, by Supervisor Schultes, a second. Mr. Boltman, discussions, questions. And Mr. Logan is, sorry, Mr. Bliss is here for any discussion.
Thank you. Obviously, this is only for the grant portion of it, but assuming we would be successful in the grant, it talks in the report talks about fire training and stuff like that. Would we also try to either pair up seek assistance from like the fire departments during the actual burning process and stuff. I've seen, other controlled burns and stuff, and there's usually equipment that's brought out for it and stuff that I don't know if the county actually has or not. So,
Yeah, so for the prescribed burn, the way I had put the cost estimate together for that was including seeking a qualified contractor that does prescribed fire to help the county parks crew assist in that burn. Currently, I'm the only member on our staff with fire training and experience. I have 9 years of prescribed burn experience and completed up through S390 fire training, but we do not have anybody else qualified. And to your point, we don't have some of the equipment, suppression equipment either. And there are numerous firms in southern Wisconsin that do have that. And so we would seek one of those firms to provide a few pieces of equipment. They're just UTVs with normally 50 or 70 gallon spray tanks in the back to assist on our burn lines. The county park staff and myself would also be in on that fire and kind of be used as almost a training day for some of our staff as well to complete this burn.
okay, thank you.
And I should also note, as part of the prescribed burn plan that you need to put together before this, you do need to get approval notification from fire department, local police, numerous organizations as well. So they would be made aware of our plans too.
Any other supervisors with questions or comments? Actually, I did have one. It just occurred to me, with our area and intergovernmental relationships, partnerships, could this be a training exercise also for some of our volunteer firefighter organizations within the county?
That's something I could look into. I'm not sure how it works. I've never done prescribed burning with a fire department. This isn't structural type fires, and it's a different training. So, but I'm not sure. I don't know if they would seek that or not.
Okay, I'm just curious because I know some of them, the Richfield volunteer firefighters, they do have, some ATV equipment, and they might be interested in training for members. I don't know.
That's a good point. I didn't consider that they might have some of that small equipment. I mean, doing a prescribed fire isn't something you can bring like a large truck out on site for, anything like that. You need compact equipment, but it is something we can look into, certainly.
Good. Okay, if no other comments, we would then vote on the resolution. Make sure I have the right one up here. Bear with me. The resolution for a grant application for the Wisconsin DNR County Conservation AIDS Grant Program. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. And our next meeting is November 18th at 7:30.